call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to a special meeting of the Kingman City Council held on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. We first will have a roll call. Clerk Annie.
Vice Mayor Watkins.
Here.
Councilmember Mello. Here. Councilmember Nelson is excused. Councilmember Samley.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley. Councilmember Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor Rob Kelly of the Calvary Baptist Church. I would ask us to all stand for that, after which we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Sue Ann Mello.
Well, let's pray. Father, we just thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you that you're a great God, a mighty God. Thank you for being the great creator of heaven and earth. Thank you that you created all humankind, and we thank you that you created both male and female. And Father, we thank you for just being such a loving God. We thank you that you sent your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for our sins, that he was buried and risen again on the third day. Father, that he offers life eternal for all who will receive the gift of salvation. So, Father, I pray tonight that you be with us, the mayor and the city council and the staff and the first responders and all the great people in this city. Lord, I pray that you give the mayor and city council wisdom, that they would seek wisdom from you to carry out their business in the city. And I pray, Lord, that you would just continue to be with them and help them as they make decisions about the city. And I also pray, Lord, that you would just be with them as they seek your wisdom to help out the poor and the homeless in this city, and that it would be, you would just give wisdom to this meeting. And we thank you for all you're doing for this city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As I said earlier, this is a special meeting of the City Council. Our first agenda item and only agenda item is on this special meeting is item 1A, resolution number 5426, canvass of the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. Arizona revised statutes require the governing body to canvass this type of election within 60 to 20 days of the election. Election materials will be available online prior to the meeting for inspection by the council and/or public. Staff recommends approval of resolution number 5426. Clerk Meredith.
Thank you. So this evening, I'm just bringing forth the resolution with the results from Mojave County Elections Department's primary election canvass. They are all listed out very clearly in the resolution. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions? Okay. Hearing none, I would suggest that we have a motion to adopt resolution number 5426.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move on, and that resolution carries. That is the end of this special meeting of the City Council for this resolution. Moving on to our regularly scheduled City Council appointments. 1A, swearing in of Ken Watkins as mayor. Per Article 2, Section 2-919B of the City of Kingman Code, Vice Mayor Ken Watkins will be sworn in as mayor due to the resignation of Mayor Jen Miles, effective August 5th, 2022. Vice Mayor Watkins will serve as mayor through the end of Mayor Miles' current term, ending December 6th, 2022. I guess that's on me. And Judge. Welcome, Judge. Glad to have you here tonight.
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws
Constitution and laws
of the state of Arizona,
of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
of Kingman City Mayor
of Kingman City
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God. Congratulations.
And if it's all right, I'm going to take my coat off again. It's just more comfortable. Thank you. Just briefly, I know I would like to once again say thank you to Jen Miles and all the years of service that she has given to this city. And she would be up here today if it wasn't for health reasons. So I would ask that we continue to keep her in our prayers, that the doctors will find a way to help her to be more comfortable and to prolong her life. I'm honored also to accept this position and had never thought that this would happen like this as when I was elected to city council. I just thought it'd be great to serve on city council and serve the citizens of our great city. And not only our citizens, but all those who visit here and who live in surrounding areas. They all have an effect on us in our great city, and it's all up to all of us to participate and continue to make it great. I want to thank all those who've helped put me here, and especially my wife, Darcy. I love her and appreciate her support in taking this important step. Once again, thank you, all of you, for being here, all those who are online. Anyway, I appreciate your support. Thank you. We'd like to continue on then to our schedule. Item number 2, call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. Clerk Meredith.
Okay, at this time, Mayor Watkins, we do not have anybody that has registered to join us via Zoom. No written comments were received, and nobody in the audience has registered to address council this evening.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda, consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. I hope all of us as council members have been able to take a look at the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments?
Mayor,
Yes,
I
Councilor
will be
Walker.
recusing myself from item 3C. I have a conflict with that.
Okay. 3C. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councilor Walker. Yes, Councilor Wall.
I would like to talk about M, please.
Okay. Any other items to be discussed? Okay, hearing none, I would have a motion approving the consent agenda, items A, B, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L. Of course, setting apart item C and item M.
I'll make that motion.
And we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, okay. Carl, do we need to discuss C or?
No, I think just with the fact that Councilmember Walker is just recusing themselves for the conflict issue, you can move on without.
Okay, then we move on with that. Okay, so all those in favor of item C, Allo Arizona LLC Fiber Hub Ground Lease.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve item C of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion, second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item number M. Councilor Mello.
Yeah, I pulled this because I just wanted to highlight it, and I'm happy this is happening, finally, the rehabilitation of the Jerry Ambrose Veterans Building. And I wanted to thank TR Orr. He bid, significantly less than some others, and then when there wasn't quite enough, the grant wasn't enough, he went even less. He went even lower to pick up that contract and do that for them. So I'm grateful, and I'm happy we have a local builder, local contractor working on it, and I'm looking forward to it. So really happy about it. Thank you, TR Orr.
We do have a representative from TR Orr if anybody would like to have questions from him. Okay, I think we're good on that. Then Councilor Miller, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we approve item M.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have no, number 4, no old business. Item number 5, new business. Public hearing, approve resolution number 5425, authorizing submission of an application for the fiscal year 23 Arizona Department of Housing CDBG regional account funds. And so I guess we need to open a public hearing. Public hearing is now open.
Good
Tina,
evening.
do we have you speak now, or do we wait for any comments from Carl? Direction?
We can let Tina speak to give an overview of the program, then you can see if there's any comments from the
Okay.
public.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before we get into the presentation, I think it's really important that I recognize, or certainly take this opportunity to recognize 2 individuals that ensured that this item was brought this evening, and that is Denise Bishop, who is a WACOG consultant, and with her expertise, her direction, and her guidance, our city grants Administrator Monica Murphy was able to formulate everything needed in talking to the state, in posting public meeting notices and meeting deadlines and timelines, again, to make sure that this made it to tonight's agenda. So I just think it's important that I say thank you to both of them. All right, so moving on to our public hearing and then the report to you on the City of Kingman's Community Development Block Grant, or what we refer to as CDBG, the fiscal year 22 regional account. So I thought we should start with really some basics about CDBG. What is it? So it is a grant program that is funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and then administered by the states. And the purpose of the CDBG program is to provide affordable housing. It's to provide and build suitable neighborhoods and suitable environment, as well as expand economic development or opportunities. Now, in order for a project to qualify for funding for CDBG, there are one of 3 national objectives that it must meet, and that is either benefiting primarily low or moderate income citizens or individuals. It must meet an urgent need, one of the other options, or remove slum or blight. And in addition to that, any project must fall into one of the eligible activities. And there are a whole host of them, but really I would say that these are the more widely used activities, and that is housing rehabilitation, public services, such as child care services, providing services to the seniors, special economic development activities, and public facilities and improvements. So now that we know the basics, in a nutshell, how does it actually get funded? So again, it's funded from the federal agency and allocated to the states. For us, that's the state of Arizona. And then the state of Arizona allocates those monies to the Council of Government Regions. And from there, which ours is WACOG, from there, the Council of Government Regions determine the methodology used to allocate those funds to the communities within each of their regions. So for WACOG, our Mojave County communities decided that they would allocate those funds on a 2-year cycle, and this is the 2nd year cycle. And the city is expected to receive just over $400,000. So a project has to be selected to be funded, and so how does that selection process work? Well, one of the requirements is that we get community input and we solicit their feedback. And so we held a public meeting on July 6th at the Powerhouse. And for a couple of weeks prior to that, we posted notices in several locations throughout the community, hoping to encourage attendance. Unfortunately, we only had a couple of citizens attend, and there was some really good discussion and conversation about CDBG, but there was not a project that was provided, or there was no interest in a project that was provided from the citizens. And so then that next step is, okay, we're required to hold a public hearing with the council. And at that point, we still want to welcome public comment. Maybe they'll have some suggestions at that point. But then at that point, city staff then reaches into their pocket and says, okay, here are some projects that could qualify. And that's where we are this evening. So to give you a little background, the last 2 funding cycles for CDBG, we've actually utilized those monies for ADA improvements. One of the areas for ADA improvements was on Andy Devine between 4th and 5th Street. We improved the curbs, we expanded the sidewalks, we gave better access to the driveways, and then our current funding cycle, not the one that we're requesting this evening, but the current funding cycle is providing or is improving ADA accessibility in the area on Andy Devine between Johnson and Broadway. And so we haven't begun construction on that yet, but that will begin soon. And so it shouldn't surprise you that our recommended project then is moving down that same path and recommending that we improve ADA accessibility on Andy Devine, and that will be from Johnson Avenue down to Michael Street, so that's about 1.5 miles, but it's also going to encompass the Lewis Kingman Park area as well, so to provide accessibility at the park. And so the importance of that project, of course, is ADA accessibility, safety to our citizens. And then it is an eligible project. It meets the low to moderate income national objective, and it improves the accessibility to our disabled and our elderly citizens. So the next steps at this point would be, of course, to hold a public hearing and then identify a project to be used for the CDBG funding, and staff is recommending the ADA improvements in the area that was shared earlier. And then ultimately, an application will be submitted to the Arizona Department of Housing, and that would actually be tomorrow. And then shortly thereafter, we would be awarded the monies to be used towards the construction of the project. So with that, I'll answer any questions that I can. Otherwise, I'll step aside and, okay, great. Sounds good.
Hearing that, we will close this public hearing. Council members. Mr. Walker. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you, Annie. Tina, I do have one question, and I know this, no, you're fine where you're at. And this is sort of silly, but because we call Annie Devine East Annie Devine, but in here it says North.
Oh, does it?
It does.
Well, it's the Andy Devine that we all know and love, so it must be the East Andy Devine. I'll make that
So
correction.
I was wondering if we could just make
Yes.
that, it's a slight
It's a-
correction, but if we're
It's a big correction,
gonna,
actually.
and you're right. And so if we could make sure, refer to that. I know Annie Devine takes off at a northeast, and it's difficult, and we have a lot of new people in town, and a lot are trying to call it north, but it really, because we do call it East Annie Devine, we should hold true to that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. No, it's just one of those things that I have arguments with my office staff too. So, anyway, hearing no comments from council, I would like to have a motion then on this, on resolution number 5425, authorizing submission of an application for fiscal year 23 of Arizona Department of Housing CDBG regional account funds.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 5425.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 6, department reports. And we're moving item C up first, and I think that's going to be Mr. Allred. And of course, we would like to congratulate Grandpa Allred. One of his children had a grandchild, a grandson this morning.
Yes, thank you very much.
And so I think you want to head off to Henderson as soon as you get out of
I
here.
do. So thank
Well,
you for
welcome,
letting
Phil,
me cut.
and once again, congratulations. So item C first is revised subdivision approval process.
All right, good evening. Just wanted to take a few minutes to follow up on some discussion that we had in a previous meeting earlier this year about the subdivision approval process. Just as a recap, we were looking for ways to streamline the process and see if there's anything that we can do to make it a little bit easier and a little bit quicker for the development community. And so as part of that discussion, we looked into an option that would allow building permits to be issued prior to formal acceptance of the improvements by the city council. And so as we were looking at this option, and you'll see here on the slide, the goals were to see if we could save time in the process, but at the same time, make sure that we address some considerations and concerns. Those concerns would be to make sure that there's emergency access on the site, and want to make sure that the installed infrastructure, primarily the underground improvements, are protected, and that would be primarily from stormwater damage. So we want the roads to be constructed, and we also just want to avoid any challenges to remediate any deficiencies in the infrastructure before they're accepted, like if there was an issue with the asphalt or concrete or something like that. So those were kind of the concerns as we were looking at developing a policy that would allow early issuance of building permits. So as we started to develop this, we assembled a team, and the team included the engineering department, the public works department, and the community development department. And we went through all of these considerations, and we kind of set some goals as to, one, see if we could develop a policy that addresses all the concerns that we have, determine if there's any changes to the code that may be needed. As we're doing this, we're providing flexibility to the development community, but we want to make sure that they finish the project. And we want to make sure that there's a means to document, if someone wants to participate in this, there's a clear document out there that says, yes, we're participating and we agree to these conditions. And so as part of this process also, as we developed the policy, we did meet with a member of the development community to show it to them and see if there was any feedback from them. And so the policy that we've developed is primarily, we wanted to focus on single-family subdivisions that had an active assurance agreement. And so this policy is primarily for subdivisions that fit into this category. So like the infill projects wouldn't necessarily fall into this policy. So we determined that building permits could be issued when, one, we have an agreement, the final plat's been recorded, all of the grading is complete. We want to make sure, in addition with the grading, that all the drainage infrastructure is in and complete. We want to make sure all of the property pins setting the legal boundaries of the property have been set. We want to make sure all the water and sewer has been installed and has passed all of the testing that we need. We want to, in addition to that, we want to make sure that all the fire hydrants work and that they are having minimum flows that we need. And then just in terms of some of the administrative side, we want to make sure all the as-built plans are turned in and that we've issued all of the regulatory approvals for the water and sewer. And we want to make sure, in addition to that all the street improvements are complete, with the exception of some minor punch list items. So we want the bulk of it done, but we can kind of let some of the minor items that need to get resolved go, that wouldn't substantially change any of the improvements. And so those are the conditions that we are proposing as part of the policy. In addition to that, what we would do as a means to encourage completion of the project, don't want them to get too far, so this would be, they would be able to start a building permit and do foundation and plumbing, but we wouldn't want them to go any further until the subdivisions have been formally accepted by the city. And so the last part there is they can proceed after the foundation stage when all of the improvements have been accepted by the city council and all the financial assurances have been released by the city council. And like I said earlier, we'll have an agreement that they would sign for each subdivision, basically saying, yes, we understand, this is the policy, and we agree to it. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Allred?
I do have some.
Yes, Councilor Samuel.
So the project qualifies, not necessarily the developer. Is that how I understand it?
If it's a single-family subdivision with an active assurance, it would qualify.
Okay, and what if there are multiple builders within that subdivision?
Probably wouldn't qualify because well, it depends on the assurance, right? Usually.
Well, if my scenario is a developer goes in, he takes care of the assurances, all that is in process, sells 10 lots to another builder, and then does that builder qualify for this expedited process? The insurances are in place, but they're in place by the original developer, but then you have a second developer. I'm sorry, that's just how my mind goes.
I didn't think that one through. I don't know.
Okay. Well, food for thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know that because,
Okay.
and that was why my question is the developer qualifying or is the project, the subdivision qualifying? Because they are not one and the same on occasion.
I think my answer would be the project qualifies, and as long as it has an active assurance agreement to ensure that the improvements get completed, I guess it would qualify, but would probably need to look at it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification on that.
Yeah, I would suspect it could probably work, but the answer is going to be, it depends. So I can't tell you yes or no, because I think it's going to depend on those relationships and how things are working out. But I think, we would do our best to try and make sure that situation
Okay.
works.
So is it doable to put it into the agreement in some way? Or, in full disclosure, I don't want to subject staff to making a case by case, and we get into some real,
So I think it's going to depend on the type of assurance, right? Because if it's a property escrow assurance, the developer wouldn't be able to transfer ownership to another developer until that assurance has been released. So to what Carl's saying, I think it's going to depend on the situation.
okay. They won't be able to transfer the assurance, but they can transfer property
They can. So
They won't be able to transfer any property
escrow agreement
if it's in there.
prohibits
Okay.
the developer from transferring ownership to someone else until that assurance has been
Okay.
released.
All right, perfect. And then what is, or is there any recourse? I was trying to look through everything, like what is our recourse? And then the second part to that question is, are we going to be doing inspections to make sure? It's not that I don't trust the building community, however, making sure that they are just at that slab
So,
point and not going vertical.
so in terms of recourse, it would be, what if they don't follow the agreement?
Correct.
Well,
What if we go out there and they've got 3 that are vertical and, oh my gosh, I couldn't wait till the next council meeting to get this accepted, or,
I think the process would be, we would issue a stop work order.
Okay.
And basically take whatever legal process that we could for that.
okay,
They wouldn't be able to progress. We would stop inspections after, they wouldn't be able to get like any other type of inspection beyond foundation and plumbing. And
right.
so if they started to go beyond that, then there would be some sort of stop work.
Stop until it's remediated.
Yeah,
then
stop
if
until
it-
we either, until you finish the improvements for the subdivision and it gets accepted by council.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't have repeat instances where
Right.
this happens. So just for protection of the city. And then my final question is, so we're going to accept the improvements via city council?
Correct. So the only thing that wouldn't be is we would accept the water and sewer improvements prior to city council. And there's some language in the regulations that allow us to do that.
Okay.
That way we can turn the water on, and that, because if you remember from the last discussion, there was a lot of concern about bringing combustibles on site without the water system being active. And so we've determined that we can accept the water and sewer improvements prior, and that eliminates that concern and issue.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, Counselor Stanley, and thank you. Those are great questions. And yes, Counselor Saley.
The developer that you were working with on this, did they feel like this was going to help them or be a much faster process? Were they at least 50% happy with your compromise?
I can't say that they were fully happy, but they
Okay.
acknowledged that this would save them a little bit of time.
A little bit of time.
Yeah.
That's better than nothing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was my similar thoughts also, is how was this accepted by the developers and by the building community? But it sounds like you've gotten some feedback from them.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think this will probably, depending on the project, on average, say about 1 to 2 months, right? So it just depends. So,
That can be huge.
Mhm.
Okay. Great questions and great answer. Thanks, Phil.
Yep.
Anything else from counselors? Okay. Thank you, Phil.
thanks.
Thanks.
Be careful driving up to Henderson. Oh, by the way, Phil, is this your first? First grandchild. Congratulations again. Okay. Item A then, moving back to that one, and I think, Rich, are we picking on you on that one? Rich Ruggles from our building department? Okay. Commercial zoning report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yes, this is a commercial zoning report, just a general overview of our commercial zones in Kingman, and then specifically how it relates to dollar stores, as there's been an interest from the council on that subject. So as I think all of you recall, we updated the zoning code last year. It was about a 2-year effort to completely revamp the old code. The old code was adopted back in 1971. It was pretty out of date. It had been updated numerous times with numerous amendments. So the new code was adopted, as I said, June of last year, and its purpose was to improve the code usability by developing a new format, a new organization, to make it more user-friendly, to make it more understandable to the public and to staff as well. Consolidate and modernize uses and provide updated definitions for the different uses within the code. Update standards and to improve the quality of development. We do now have design standards for all commercial in Kingman. It was previously limited to certain design overlay districts. We have a revised administrative procedures to streamline development reviews, things like requiring conceptual plans and encouraging pre-application meetings prior to building permits. And then we also wanted to make sure that the code was in compliance with state and federal laws in regards to land use regulations, as those do change frequently. So in the code itself, we have 26 base zoning districts, including 4 sort of traditional commercial districts, C1, C2, C2 HMR, which is Long Wallapai Mountain Road, and C3. They are sort of, there's a gradient of intensity from the lowest C1 to C3. So C1 is going to be more like your offices and light retail, all the way up to C3, which is your major grocery stores, your Walmarts, things like that. In the downtown area, we have we have actually 4 transit zones, 2 which are commercial. T5G, which is along Beale Street, and then the T5MS zone, which is along Anna Devine from 1st to 8th Streets. These are mostly commercial districts, but they do allow some residential uses, and the transit zone itself is more concerned with the form of the buildings as opposed to uses. We also have 2 planned development districts in Kingman, known as planned development zones. One is the Wallapai Mountain Medical Center, previously called the new hospital that is now owned by KRMC, and as well as the Kim Crossing area around the future interchange on both sides, both the city property and the property that's owned by the hospital. And those have sort of unique design and use standards for those areas. So also within the code, we establish a list of uses that are allowed by right and those allowed by conditional use permit for all districts, including the commercial zones. And we have classifications, 9 different classifications within the code. They are animal keeping, industrial, manufacturing, processing, and wholesaling, recreation, education, and assembly, residential, retail, trade, services, transportation and infrastructure, urban agriculture, and then finally vehicle sales and service. So each classification contains a number of listed uses that are allowed, and then those uses are further defined in the code. So under retail trade, we have something called general retail business. And the definition itself states that those are stores and shops selling many lines of merchandise to the ultimate consumer for any purpose other than resale. And then it goes on to give a number of examples, and those include variety stores, toy and game stores, dry goods, department stores, clothing stores, and accessories. Definition does not specifically call out dollar stores, but based upon the line of merchandise that these sell, dollar store would basically be would fall into this category of general retail businesses. So we don't have any specific locational restrictions on general retail business within any commercial district, and all the commercial districts allow those type of businesses to occur. So by default, we don't actually limit dollar stores in Kingman. When we started the zoning code process, there was some comments from the council and as well as from the commission members of the public about at least exploring the idea of, could you restrict them? Could you limit the number of coming into Kingman? Because there were some concerns over them and how they looked. There's also some discussion about architectural design, and as I mentioned, we did adopt those standards into the code, and they are applicable to all commercial, including dollar stores. The consultant also, as part of their contract with the city, did do an audit of our current, the previous zoning ordinance, and they made certain recommendations. One of the things they looked at is some of the issues that we'd be facing with adopting a new code. As you probably know, Arizona is a state that protects private property rights. We even passed a referendum in 2006 called the Private Property Rights Protection Act. It's been codified in the state statutes, and that allows a property owner to file a claim against a local government for reimbursement or loss of the fair market value of a property that results from enactment of a new land use law. So an example would be if previously in the zoning code you allowed dollar stores in a given area, and then the new code explicitly banned them from or restricted them, someone could, in theory, have a case to bring against the city. So our intent was to update the code, but not to make the code more restrictive than the previous code. And so that was to maintain property owners' rights and also to avoid any potential lawsuits against the city. So that was one thing to think about as we updated the code. Another issue is just the difficulty in trying to create a definition. You know, what is a dollar store? Is it based upon the average cost of an item in the store? Is it based upon the size of the store? Is it based on some other thing, you know, the types of items that they sell? It's sort of hard to come up with a definition that does not potentially exclude other uses that you might want to have in a particular area. So there's that challenge. And then there'd be nothing to, even if you're successful in doing that, there would be nothing to prevent them from moving to some location immediately outside the city limits. And that would represent a loss of TPT, tax revenue to the city, and it wouldn't stop the proliferation of the stores. So ultimately, there was no restrictions placed on their location within the city of Kingman in the new zoning code. So hopefully that kind of explains the situation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Rich, first for that report. I know there was a lot of concern, especially as people saw the ground being broken for the new Dollar General store on Stockton Hill Road. There was a lot of concern. But I know from talking to others, you know, if they've done their homework and followed all the rules according to our zoning, there's not much we can really do.
Right. It is, like I said, it is now, that particular store is subject to our design standards.
Correct.
So the typical sort of corrugated metal facade that you would see, they have to treat the sides of the building that face the streets. In this case, there's 3 streets that it actually fronts on, with at least 25% of those facades have to be something other than metal. And as it turns out, they are going to treat all 3 sides. So, okay. And with other architectural features as well. So they will be in compliance with our new design standards, and that will be, as I said, applicable to all new commercial that comes into Kingman.
Okay, well, thanks for all the homework on this.
All right.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay,
I
yes,
have one.
Counselor.
You know, I think I've heard the same concerns, and I agree. I don't like dollar stores, and I've read the data about what they do, you know, to your market as far as bringing in other retail. But I think that it's really up to the citizens. If a majority of people in Kingman don't want dollar stores, then they have to stop shopping at them, right? That's the only way. If we all stopped shopping there, they would close. No more new stores would come in. So I think collectively, if a majority really hate these, the answer is stop shopping at them and see what happens. And I think the city, we probably just need to be stricter with our enforcement. You know, a lot of people complain about how they don't take care of the property and it's got a lot of weeds and trash. And so we probably should stay on top of those so that it at least looks nice.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Saley.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Okay. Hearing none. Once again, Rich, thanks for that report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Item 6B, bird scooter update by Mr. Bradley, and then Sean Ayash.
Ayesh.
Ayash?
Yes,
Okay.
thumbs up.
There he is. Great. Thank you, Sean. Welcome.
Well, good evening, City Council, Mayor. Appreciate the time to be able to get back before you guys and go over the scooter program. It seems like just the other day we sat up here and talked about starting this, and time flies, and here we are over 6 months later. So on February 1st, 2022, the city entered into a temporary operating agreement with Bird Rides, Inc. to establish rules and regulations governing the temporary use and operations of electric stand-up scooters within the city. This operating agreement was a pilot program, and it would enable the city to analyze how the alternative mode of transportation throughout our community would be received, as well as how it would be used in the community. Instead of allowing the scooters to be operated throughout the whole city, we set up a phased program. We looked at a certain area, and we felt that this would help us to manage it and to report on it. In our initial discussions with Bird, they indicated that typically when a scooter program arrives in the community, the trend is that the concerns and all the questions will come early, within the first 3 weeks. And in doing that, that's exactly what happened when we started this. We set up the economic development program to take and field a lot of that activity and those calls. And, like those other communities, we did get that. But knowing we were going to get those concerns, we did set up a launch program to get out there in the community ahead of time, so that way people understood what the scooters were doing, how they're used, where they can go. And that did help. So as these questions and concerns came up, our team did work hand in hand with Bird Scooter, and it was those issues that did come up, they were addressed quickly. And then also, once the community became familiar with the program, we did receive fewer and fewer calls. Within the last month or two, I've really only received one other call, and it was, I'll kind of go over a few of those items and kind of a few of the calls that we've gotten. An example is questions about where the scooters are parked. Sometimes they'll be at a sidewalk in front of a residence in a community, and when it's first launched, that homeowner sees a scooter there, and it's sitting there that day, and then maybe the next day, and so what is this? And so we get the call. Explain the program, and many times after that, they understand it, and it's basically sufficient. If more needed to be addressed, we would reach out to Bird, and the local representative would, in a very timely manner, come out, remove the scooter from that area, and relocate it to the other area that typically the scooter started in. Example of other items were the most recent last calls is our parks. We don't want people riding those type of units in some of the walkways and other areas. So we are able to limit where those scooters go. But with limiting that, it doesn't just stop. The scooter doesn't just stop. It goes into a limp mode where the user can still kind of push it. And in this case, if a kid gets on it and he pushes it around the park, it might look like the scooter's being ridden, but it actually isn't mechanically being able to drive around those areas and cause the issues that we're concerned about. So those were addressed, and it's, again, just understanding what those units can and can't do when they shut down. All that being said, I'm happy to report that our experience with the implementation has been mostly a positive experience. It really has. We received positive feedback. I was just doing a business retention expansion survey out at the industrial park today with the company, and the manager had brought up one of the questions we asked them is about the downtown, rate the downtown 1 through 7. And he rated it actually higher, and he did mention the ability to ride the scooters from one business to another business, and that's what him and his wife do when they do come down and spend an evening on a Friday night. Didn't even bring up the Bird scooter, but having that there was a positive, and so that just happened today. We've also had people in the community say that they've used them for work, obviously, to get back and forth to work. We've had our employees within the city riding them from work to here and back home as well. And, I've talked with people all throughout the community as well as our fellow employees, and they've been able to use them. It should also be noted that, obviously high inflation, fuel prices, auto repairs, and the lag times for those repairs are a factor as why people would choose to use these type of units to traverse their community. So at this time, I would like to invite the Birds Government Partnership Representative Sean to go over some of the community patterns that we saw on where those units were ridden within our zone, ridership information, and then upon completion of that report, I'd like to provide maybe some future recommendations based upon these findings on what we'd like to bring back to council for further, with the bird program. So, Sean, can you hear us, and are you able to operate the slideshow from your location?
Definitely. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. Can you see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Lovely. Let me just get it started. And first of all, before I get started, I would like to say thank you to the mayor, to the council, and thank you, Mr. Bratley, for letting me give this presentation to you today. It's been a true pleasure being able to provide our services to Kingman, and it's been a really wonderful time partnering with Mr. Bratley and his team to help bring this to Kingman. I'd like to start by just telling everyone a little bit about Bird. We are a first and last mile electric transportation company, focusing on trying to get people out of cars to try to solve that last mile of connectivity. Reduce congestion, improve air quality, and then in general, just improve the overall quality of life in communities where we operate. Mr. Bratley mentioned that with gas prices so high, people might be looking for alternate modes of transportation, and we really like to try to be that mode for people to select when they're choosing a trip of under 3 miles to get to and fro where they need to go, be it work or local business. So how does it work? You might have seen the Bird scooters around your community. You download an app, you use on the app, there's a map of Kingman, and you'll see the locations of Bird scooters in that app. You can walk up and scan the QR code on the vehicle and then start your ride. And after, of course, watching a safety tutorial and get to where you need to go. So a little bit about ridership, and this is a pretty cool slide. I'm pretty proud of this. We've seen since launch almost 5,000 rides, and roughly about 4,500 miles traveled. And one cool thing about that is that that's almost, depending on, I guess, what route you take, it's roughly the equivalent of going back and forth across the United States, which is something that is pretty cool. And I think we see pretty good ridership. I think in comparison to national averages, the rides in Kingman are slightly longer in terms of time, about 18.4 minutes, and then also about on par from a distance standpoint, about 1.6 miles per trip. One thing that is kind of cool about this that I wanted to point out is that, based on our estimates, there was an Emory University study that looked at the impact of scooters on the local economy. And what they found is that on average, communities with scooters can see a benefit of increased spending of almost $921 per scooter. So doing some quick math for Kingman, that would mean almost about $50,000 in additional economic spending at local businesses because of this program, which I think is just a huge benefit and a great thing that we're happy to help bring to Kingman. And I think we heard an example from Mr. Bratley earlier of a gentleman and his wife, going from local business to local business in the downtown area. And if I go to the next slide, that's something that we kind of see here with a large concentration of rides in the downtown area near the Mojave Museum and the Route 66 Museum. Then also an additional pocket of rides near the Mojave County Fairgrounds. And I think what we'll see on from this data is that it seems that people are either kind of staying in the downtown area, but there are, I would say that's probably the majority of rides, but then a decent proportion of rides of folks kind of going from the Mojave County Fairgrounds to the downtown area, which you can see in this next slide. I know it's kind of faint, but this is kind of the connection of the ride starts and the ride ends from the previous photo. So you can kind of see the visual of where folks are going. And again, the largest concentration of ridership here is in the downtown area, which is kind of what we expect, what we were expecting. And I think it's a good testament to folks using our vehicles to get to and from local businesses. Moving on to the next slide, you see on the left here is the phase one of the operating area, as Mr. Bratley pointed out. We, as part of this pilot, we wanted to kind of start small and see what happened before kind of considering what the future might hold. And based on the learnings that we have, we've seen a lot of people using this to get to work. We wanted to try to look at a slightly larger operating area for the next phase of the program that accounts for a little more residential areas and some additional business areas so that people could further use our sustainable transportation to get to and from work and from their home. As part of that, we think also, with this kind of the larger area being about double the size, we think that it would probably also make sense to increase the number of vehicles to continue to serve the existing locations and the new areas that are included into the program. And with that, we're about 50 vehicles right now, and we think that it would be sensible, given the size of the proposed phase two operating area, to go to about 100 vehicles to provide that sustainable transportation service to those additional communities. With that, as Mr. Bratley kind of pointed out, if there are any concerns or any items that folks would like to raise to us, I wanted to share our customer service, the different ways that people can get in touch with us. There is a phone number and an email located on the vehicles. And then there's also in the app, we have a community mode feature where people can directly report any issues that they're seeing to us, and we can dispatch a local representative to solve that. So first of all, just thank you so much for giving me the time to come to speak to you. It's been an absolute pleasure working with the city staff and Mr. Bratley as part of this program, and thank you for giving me the time to speak to you today. With that, I will pass the baton back over to Mr. Bratley, but not before I say thank you so much for the wonderful pronunciation of my name at the beginning. It's something that I don't see too often, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. So a few other things I wanted to point out in closing, that the city is currently going through a transportation master plan study, and they've talked with you folks about that. So the timing of the Bird Scooter pilot program with the city's transportation plan provided some insights and feedbacks into the future modes of transportation. The plan itself speaks to ways the cities can implement various transportation vehicles such as these scooters in which citizens can travel the public roadways within their communities. So I'm just very excited that the city of Kingman is really at the forefront when you look at Mojave County and our other sister communities where we're already implementing things that are being talked about in these plans. As part of the public comments portion of those plans, there were public comments from citizens regarding the current bird scooter pilot program. And those comments alluded to the importance of the scooters as they used them, and it also alluded to the suggestion that, and the need to increase the area in which the scooters can be operated. So based upon all the positive feedback, obviously the great partnership that we've experienced thus far with Bird Rides, Inc., so staff, has been very happy with the program, and we really probably be bringing an item back to a future council meeting if it's something you guys wanted to see, looking at that type of a map outline on increasing as well as additional scooters to operate within those areas. Also talked with our police chief and see if there were any items that came up. He alluded there was nothing that was mentioned, and so that was I thought that was the case, but I definitely wanted to find out if it was. Parks and Rec has also been very happy with the program and are very supportive of it. So with that, if you guys have any questions with myself or Sean, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Well, Bennett and Sean, thank you very much for the report and update. I was very concerned, but about the bird scooters when any kind of scooter, but with this company too, same thing. Especially about safety when it comes into play. Have we had any serious accidents? I haven't heard of any.
No, and that's why I wanted to mention, reach out to the police chief and ask if there were any reports, and there weren't any.
Now, I do have another, and it might be a stupid question, but anyway, humor me.
Okay.
With that expanded area, and of course, I don't think anybody would be silly enough to do it, but would they be trying to jump on I-40 to go from there to go north to Stockton Hill?
So the geo-fenced area would, our off-ramps would be off limits, and the only way they could do that is if they lugged them up there and walked them, and nobody's really lugging a lot of stuff on the freeway. So in big communities, they have to also take that into consideration. So we're no different. So I-40 would be geofence, which is they would not allow the scooters to be operated going up those ramps.
That's what I was wondering, if there was geofences that would keep them off, basically.
Yes, I don't know. Sean, would you like to speak to that also?
Sure, happy to do that. So yeah, as Mr. Bradley mentioned, we would kind of shut off the motors to the vehicles in those areas. So kind of on I-40 and on the off and on ramps, we'd make it so that the motor of the vehicle wouldn't work anywhere there. So that doesn't preclude the situation where someone decides to put a 50-pound scooter on their shoulder and walk it up and walk along the highway, but the motor would not work in kind of moving into the on or off ramp, or once you get onto the highway.
And I would also mention that currently they are operating on one side of I-40 right now with our current map.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments?
I have.
Councilor Samway?
I am in full support of this. I think it's needed in our community. I've talked to several folks that are in favor of the scooter program or have ridden them or seen them. I was a little concerned about traffic integrating with the scooters, and I feel like we have had enough time to acclimate that this is a very logical step to incorporate the area that you've researched, and I'm in full support of the phased in second phase of this project. So.
Thank you. Councilor Staley.
I was trying to look at that phase 2 map, and it looks like it might go to the entrance of the airport. Is that a yay or nay?
No, I don't believe, if we could bring that back up, it doesn't.
It went past kind of past ADOT.
Yeah,
Well,
I
so if it can go all the way
think
to
it did.
ADOT, wouldn't we want to take it out to the airport so people could ride to work out there?
Let's look at that.
See, there's ADOT.
I think it goes to Gordon, so it's quite short of that. I think to go on, they'd have to go on Route 66. So,
I mean, I ride my bike along there. It's not
Yeah.
too bad to ride out
you know
that.
what,
That's true.
I mean,
I think I would comment, I think there's some road speed restrictions, meaning I don't think it can operate on some roads that have a speed that exceeds, I'm going to say 40, 45 miles per hour, but I don't recall off the top of
It
my
just,
head.
we always hear about, they wish that CART was a little bit more efficient with getting people to the airport for the jobs in the industrial park. And so we're already hearing people are riding these to work. If there was a chance to just have it go a little bit further.
yeah, I like, you did mention, the CART in the industrial park. I mentioned a business retention expansion survey earlier. That item gets brought up as well. In our report, that will come back. We've already started conversations again with CART. We feel like, this is a last mile type, product. And if we could get, if we're able to, in the future, bring CART to the industrial park, then we've already talked with Bert about locating scooters out at the park, geofencing that area, and then they can take it from the stop to their place of work and be able to get there on time within the hours that they need to, because it's a big park. And so we've been looking at those items. Hopefully we'll be able to address those, because, workforce is key, and, to bring more workforce transit options for those businesses is key to us continuing to grow those businesses.
It is. Do you think that CART's going to be able, do you think that all that will come together in, say, the next year? I mean, that's always a big
I'm going to
issue
be positive and say I think anything's possible that you guys want to do, so.
Okay, put me down for that one.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Mello.
I hate to be a negative Nan, but I've had nothing but negative people, contacting me with negative comments.
I have them, I just give them your number for the name.
Okay, I guess that's what's happening, but I call Manager Wagon every time. So almost 5,000 rides and no bad incidences.
None that has been reported.
None that's been reported. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good. Nobody got too hurt. So the city doesn't make any money off this, right? It's just the
We
potential
do.
of them?
We have
Okay.
a small amount that we get, and I think, with the rides so far, it's amounted to somewhere around $500. We, as part of it, has been in the agreement, allocate that towards bike lane safety. We've thought about maybe parking areas of where they need to be. There's things like that we can use it for. It's not but as Sean mentioned, there's the other benefits of the additional 50,000 according to these impacts of revenue that then we receive sales tax on. And so there's above and beyond that.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of having CART go out to the air park. It's growing. It's going to be really big pretty soon.
Yeah.
And then and the scooters can just stay within that area and it'll shut off to come on to Route 66. I'm not as brave as
Yeah, that's
Councilwoman
very,
Stilly, but
very possible.
but that's a good idea within the air park. That'd be great. Well, thank you, Bennett.
You're welcome.
Okay. If there's any other comments or questions? Bennett, once again, thank you. Sean, thank you for the report. We appreciate that. And because there's not been any substantial negative, and this has been a great litmus test of the program, so I'm looking forward to it more. So thank you. Okay, item number 7 on our agenda, announcements by mayor, council members, city manager. Tina, since you're filling in for Mr. Foggin.
I do have a couple of announcements, a couple of events that are upcoming that I'd like to share. So we've got the Andy Devine Days Parade on Saturday, September 24th. That'll start in the morning down at First and Beale. And then we're starting up our second round of Citizens Academy, and that'll start on September 28th and end on November 9th. And registration is already full. So just wanted to share those two.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Appreciate that. Counselor Staley. Counselor Staley, I'm sorry. Yeah,
I'm
I
Samly.
said one thing, yes. Sorry. Go ahead. I know I did. But since I said your name, would you go first?
Yes. So just a couple of things. I, of course, attended our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and they had a couple of items, one which will be coming to the council, and we can go over those then, so everybody get out of here. And then the other item was the Metcalf Park, the ribbon cutting for the new climbing boulders happened last Friday, and so I'm again encouraging everybody to go down there. It's even fun for adults, but it's really fun for kids and such a neat addition to our parks.
Great, thank you. Councilor Stanley, sorry about that.
That's okay. I only have one thing since we're on recreation. I wanted to encourage people to continue to think about the White Cliffs Wagon Trail. I hiked it this last weekend, and the newer improvements are amazing. So if you haven't checked out the trail system, please do go online and look at that, and then go out there. It's beautiful weather, so go hike.
Great, thank you. Councilor Mello.
Yeah, I attended the Veterans Treatment Court graduation on July 20th, and that, always rewarding, good stuff. I'm really proud of our veterans completing that. I spoke at the Mojave Republican Forum. I attended the Airport and Industrial Park Commission Board yesterday, and lots of good stuff going on there. The warehouse is open, right, Bennett? 15 jobs to the park. That brought 15 jobs to the park. And we're hoping it'll be completed the beginning of next year, middle of next year. So that's the most exciting one for me. And I, again, wanted to encourage it. I saw that Pat Farrell was here. I wanted to encourage everyone to go to the city's website and donate so that our veterans can have bus passes. So for CART. I guess they've slowed up, so they're struggling again. So if everybody could do that, $20 buys 4 bus passes for our beloved veterans. So I just encourage you to do that. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilor Walker.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. As mentioned, actually, I would continue to encourage council members to attend the different commissions that you are assigned to, and appreciate all the reports on those commissions and what's going on. And I do want to again thank all those who serve on our commissions. I was talking to a lady today at a business, and she used to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission. And once again, appreciate all your volunteer time, all that goes on to help make our city a better city. And of course, thank our staff, thank all those who are in chamber tonight. We appreciate your participation. Council requests for future reports and updates. Okay. Hearing none. We are going to go into executive. Do we have to have a motion for that, Carl? For
Please, and the expectation is to be incredibly brief. And I would like to point out something in this agenda that on this, it talks about going into executive session under ARS 38-431.03A. It should say A1. That was dropped off because we are required to notice which subsection we're on. I was about to say, well, we can't do this, but we do have our blanket executive session statement, which covers going into executive session for legal advice, which is what we're doing at the top of the agenda. So I think we're okay to do that. So I'd like to apologize for that not being there.
Okay.
But at least we can still do it. And like I say, I expect it to be pretty quick.
And of course, item number 9, executive session A, legal discussion regarding council vacancy. The council may go into executive session in accordance with ARS 38-431.03 A and then 1.
Correct.
Okay, to discuss the council vacancy. Can we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Once again, thanks to everybody for being in chambers. If you'd like to remain, you're more than welcome to, but we're going to go into executive session for a couple minutes. Okay, we are back from executive session, and as you can see on the agenda, no decision, of course, was made in executive session, and the subject discussed, as noted on our agenda, will be brought back as an agenda item and in a future meeting for the public to know all about. So, hearing any others, I don't think there's any other complaints. I think we will adjourn this meeting.